Okay, well, I cannot seem to get Instagram to connect, but I am back. Anyway, I'm like I was saying in the other video that I have since deleted. I started posting the Melonpool comic to Comic Fury. If you want to read the archives, the old archives, the first 8 years, maybe 10 years, are up online. I'm going to tell you what the URL is right now. It's melonpool.thecomicseries.com, or you can go to melonpool.com and hit the read webcomic link, which is Mayberry's head. Let me put that up for you. Show you what that looks like. This is my first video or in this series. So basically, when you go to the website, you see Mayberry. Come on, here we go. You see Mayberry there, and you click that thought balloon, and it'll take you to the website, to the archives. I am updating again daily. The last year and a half worth of strips were there. Maybe only 150 people saw them. So I'm doling those out one a day. But in addition to that, over the next year, I'm going to start working on a new Melonpool graphic novel. And let me tell you why. In the 10 years since I updated that strip, I keep thinking of these crazy yarns I want to spin about these characters. And I thought I would take you through the process so that you guys could see kind of how I do it. A lot of times what I'll do is just sketches of different things. I've done a little bit of pre-boarding in that I have a little bit of an idea where I'm going with this. I do a lot of notes as far as things I want to do, a lot of drawings of other properties, some ideas for strips. And one of the ideas I came up with was this idea of Ralph's brain in a jar. And this is somewhat inspired by the terrible Star Trek episode Spock's Brain. But instead of stealing Ralph's brain, they're stealing his body. I don't know exactly yet who is stealing it or why. I have a couple of ideas, but I also have a couple of designs that I'm doing here. Been basically trying to figure out what his brain looks like, what his body would look like without a brain in it. You know, is he going to be in a fishbowl, or is he going to be in some sort of crazy, you know, some sort of thing that's keeping him alive. Then I stumbled upon this idea of how he's going to get around when he is just a brain in the jar. And I thought it would be, of course, he's going to use his beast of burden, Sammy, to walk him around. And I've been fooling around with different designs for this backpack, kind of very steampunky or maybe Ghostbusters looking thing that keeps him alive. And he'll just sit on top of his head, and Sammy, for the bulk of the book, will kind of work his way, you know, kind of be a beast of burden throughout this. This is some more notes that I'm doing. I actually have started watching DJ Kaufman's, is it Draw or Die? I think it's like Comics Club Draw or Die YouTube channel. And in it, I've known DJ forever, but in it, he talks about how there's this idea among cartoonists. Oh, thank you. Marshall Lennox says, you good at drawing like crazy good. Thank you. So one of the things he says in that his live stream is that there's this tendency for people who, you know, with my mindset, I guess, of wanting to protect their ideas, their intellectual property, and that the final process is the is what you're really trying to sell. And while that's true, I'm going to try and take his advice, and I believe there is a real value in seeing the process, because I watch a lot of videos about like trimming cows' hooves. I'm never going to trim a cow, but I enjoy watching it. So I, you know, with that going on. Who even doesn't draw will enjoy the process. So, like I said, one of the things I do is I have some gags. Like I'll when I was doing the old comic strip, what I would do is I would make a big cross. These would be the 4 panels of the comic strip, and then I might come up with a uh, either a sketch that inspires a gag or some part of the story. Um, I'm not going to do 4 panels in this new one, but I kind of illustrate what I would do. So, like if I was if the so the storyline where it dropped off was Ralph was basically he had just negated Ralphie. This all makes sense in a year when you read the comic, but he's negated Ralphie. He's done some time travel, and I just basically left it where he had appeared. He had been falling apart, so he had this thing where I believe his hair had fallen out, and one of his eyes had kind of gotten all funky, and I think his nose had fallen off at one point. But anyway, he was just sitting here. He had a couple of hairs. I think one of his teeth had fallen out. So he's all upset. And he decided he was going to use time travel to fix everything. Because he believed that everything that was wrong with him was based on Ralphie being created. Ralphie was his clone, his good clone. But he basically walked into a big vortex and then popped back out, and he was suddenly, back to his normal evil self. But he was intact now. So I believe where the graphic novel is going to start off. Now, I had actually outlined 5 books worth of content for a new reboot of Melonpool, but I've kind of decided now, because this webcomic actually seems to be attracting readers, that I'm not going to alienate all these people, so I'm going to pick up where this one left off. So when he pops back out of this vortex that he had going on, he's now back to normal. And he's now either in, so there's a couple of things that could be happening. He either could be in a, originally what I had intended 10 years ago when I stopped drawing was that Ralph popped out and he was back to normal. Ralphie had never been created, and I would just go on from there with the intention of bringing Ralphie back again. That's one way to go. In the last 10 years, I've had this idea that maybe I will have him have popped into the original timeline that I did from 1996 to 2005, because I did a reboot in 2014. So one of the ideas I had thought of was, because I had done that same storyline and never resolved it in the original storyline, what if the original Ralph had died, and now this Ralph from the other universe makes the crew intact, and it all resolves itself, that basically there's this new crew with a fish out of water, which is the Ralph, and basically we have the whole crew, but without a lot of the baggage. So that's maybe where I'm leaning right now, because I want to take kind of the best elements from both. But again, I need to reintroduce the characters in such a way that somebody who's never read any of the original stuff can get up to speed, but does not alienate the people who have been with me for the last 30 years. Because actually in April, this comic will be 30 years old, which is crazy. That. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of usually kind of sketch ideas, or because I have a cliffhanger, I'll know where to start and come up with a gag, and then I'll just keep revising till I come up with something that works. Again, I'm on the spot here, so I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I think I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to draw. Usually I work in pencil too, but I lately have been fooling around with just drawing straight to pen, at least in the sketchbook. A lot of times, like a funny drawing will kind of inspire me for a gag. That's not a funny drawing, but you get the idea. So one of the drawings that I remember, because I used to read a lot of books, like comic collections, and there was this drawing of Opus with his mouth super wide open. Let's see. Hi, how's it going? Is it Blue Dew is epic? Is that what it is? Your name? Well, it's good to see you. So, so one of the things that they was in that book was a picture of in one of Burke Breathitt's books. He had Opus with his mouth super wide, and so I always think about that drawing whenever I'm trying to come up with ideas. Just kind of pushing the characters to some extent. I think a lot of this early steps is going to be creating a script, or at least an outline. Well, thank you for it's been an itch that hasn't been scratched in a while, so I'm going to get better. So yeah, so sometimes I'll just draw like random things, or somebody will suggest something and I'll draw it, and that maybe will inspire an idea. Again, I've been drawing these characters forever, so really this process is going to be kind of both the old strip, because I want to end that in a good place, because right now it's not in a good place to be jumped off from, and then I also need to plot in a different way for a graphic novel setup. So let me see. These are some of the things I want to do. Basically, Spock's brain, which again, if you haven't seen it, it's a terrible comic. I mean, it's a terrible episode of Star Trek. It's probably one of the worst of the originals. Basically, these aliens come down and steal Spock's brain, and adventure ensues. That's basically it. It ends with, spoiler alert, it ends with Dr. McCoy forgetting how to put his brain back in halfway, and then Spock's semi-reanimated body guiding him through the surgery. So anyway, yeah. So this is kind of the idea. I want to take Spock's brain and I want to improve it and make a comedy out of it, and I also want to like throw it on its ear by swapping it out as the body being stolen. Thank you. I don't know what to call you. Is it Blue Dew? Epic? What would be the easiest thing to call you? So I have some notes here. Let's see. I want to do Spock's brain. I also have a couple of things that I've started that I've never done anything with. One of them is the ill-fated puppet movie that I did. And in that puppet movie, I did a lot of work on an opening that would reintroduce the characters, involving a fight with a space probe as well as a black hole. And so I was thinking about repurposing that, since it's really never seen the oh, like Blue Dude. Oh, hey, Blue Dude. Um, uh, so one of the ideas probably be to take that idea, and so I guess I'll just kind of think about this a little bit. Again, so much of this is spent just me sitting there figuring it out, and I probably will work from an outline, probably a very detailed outline, um, instead of a full-on script. Just because the way that I work, I tend to get too wordy, and anything I can do to keep from getting wordy, I will. And a lot of that is by working more in uh, in just short bursts like that, and trying to sketch out the idea as opposed to kind of scripting it out. Also, I tend to get bored with a script. Um, it's really easy for me to want to make it better, and in the process make it worse. If that makes sense. So one of the things that the movie did was we built a full set for that thing that ended up getting destroyed, but it did, in my mind, kind of work out some of the problems on how to draw the ship. So I guess if you ever want to get better at drawing a comic, build a full-size spaceship. Well, it's just about you say you barely know how to draw. I think it's just getting putting in the hours is really a lot of it. I started drawing when I was probably 3, and it's just basically the just the hours of doing it and kind of figuring stuff out. There's a great book if you really want to learn how to draw called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which is by Betty Edwards. And you can find really cheap discount copies of it a lot of the time. That book helped me tremendously as far as learning how to draw. You may not think it would because it's more realistic, but it does help. Like learning the foundational stuff does help. Not that I'm showing too much of it right now. I don't know why I'm just drawing all this. I'm gonna have to figure out her portions, or if I'm even gonna use her in the new one. Because again, she's human size, and these guys are about half the size of humans. So it does make compositions kind of weird, but I do enjoy working with Julia. She's a fun character for me. But figuring out how she fits aboard the spaceship is always kind of interesting. Yeah, I would get that book. I mean, it's worth it. We found it just recently online for $5. So, all right. So I put a lot of references to other the sci-fi that I love. So there's some elements of the Star Trek bridge in here. There's some stuff of the Millennium Falcon in here. Some 2001 stuff that I put in here. I'm very much a fan of sci-fi, or I was. Much better now. And they fly around in a ship that looks like a giant duck. So I always try to put schematics of the duck in the backgrounds. And you can tell it's a schematic too because you have these little bullet points everywhere. I always put little odds and ends on the ground, make it look a little dirtier. Some staining, some cables. You know, that's kind of the ship. Some conduit everywhere. Again, that's from the Millennium Falcon type ideas. Another area of the ship is, of course, Sammy on the wheel. Sammy's a giant hamster. He runs on a wheel 8 hours a day. He weighs about 220 pounds. He basically just eats and runs. And if he runs for 8 hours, but no more than 8 hours, because he'll burn out the turbines, he powers the spaceship. Years ago, I had a publisher. It was in color. It was Clyde Nee's company, and her brother John says to me one day, you need twice as much. I think it was twice as much energy as gravity in order to get a ship off the ground. How does a hamster generate that kind of power? And I'm like, you can believe a giant hamster, but you can't believe that he can run on a wheel fast enough to get a ship off the ground. And that was kind of the logic that fueled most of the strip, was this idea that, if within the context of this strip something's possible, then I could do it. I did a lot of time travel. I did a lot of cloning was another thing I did. So this part I didn't actually build for the ship, for the movie, so it's a little looser. I just know there's a lot of junk everywhere because Ralph can't be bothered with cleaning. Speaking of clones, so this is Ralph. He's basically a coffee addicted inventor. Put the coffee cup in his hand. And in various storylines, he's been cloned, and he gets an evil clone, which is actually good because he's already evil. He also ends up with an eviler clone at one point. So there's Ralph, and then his clone It's the exact same model. The only difference is his eyelids and his posture. I'm really sloppy, but that has a lot to do with the pen. And then Fauntleroy. Now, Fauntleroy was immediately after being created, threw Ralph into a lava pit, and so he's horribly scarred because at the very end of the storyline, he swapped bodies with Ralph, and or accidentally swapped bodies and ended up getting the scarred body. So he always wants revenge. I don't know if he'll show up in the new comic. He's a good villain, but I already did kind of a Wrath of Khan thing with him. So those are three faces of Ralph. There's Ralph, the original, Ralphie, the clone, and Fauntleroy, the eviler clone. And Fauntleroy was named after Donald Duck. Donald Duck's middle name is Fauntleroy, and so I decided I was going to make Ralph's middle name Fauntleroy as well. Where are these characters from? So these characters are from my comic that I did from 96 to 2012, and then came back in 2014 to 2016. And you can find those on, if you go to melonpool.com, it would be melonpool.com, and then click the webcomic link. You can read the first 8 to 10 years of strips, and then it's updating daily the last year and a half that I did when I did the reboot. And it's a lot of crazy storylines, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I think the time has come for me to kind of revisit it because I do miss it. In addition to it, I do have I'm also a puppeteer. I also build puppets, which is what I do it in the evenings. I have a channel. But I'm here, I promise. So I do have the the same characters as puppets. I'm not used to this this vertical format. Let's see if I get any better. But yeah, so I do have all the puppets with these characters too. So who knows? Maybe I'll do a little something with that at some point. Hello, how's it going? So anyway, I'm going back here. But yeah, so this is kind of trying to figure this out again. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick outline of what I think I'm going to do. Okay, so I want the intro to all the characters. And status quo. Okay, I also want to know, do we want Jalea? Do we want Ralphie? And since I'm still writing the very end of this webcomic that this is going to springboard off of, I still have the option of adding or subtracting both these characters, because towards the end of what I have in the archive, both of them are parts unknown. So those are two questions I want to answer. I also I know the things I know about the story is too. I don't want to rehash a lot of stuff. I kind of want to do some new content. But one of the mainstays of the original comic was that Mayberry was obsessed with Earth TV especially specifically Star Trek, specifically Gilligan's Island. And I think I'm going to downplay that part of it a little bit. But I still want those qualities. One of the ideas I've been thinking about with Mayberry is that he's very much an expert on things because of watching these TV shows. So like he knows kind of how to captain a ship based on watching Star Trek. That's kind of the idea. He kind of knows, like might recognize the plot, but the idea is that he always watches or takes the wrong thing from what he watched. So like all of his solutions are based on the absolute worst takeaway from whatever he's watched, or he's watched the wrong show. One of the gags I always did was he was a Star Trek fan stuck in a Star Wars universe. Kind of that idea. Or, you know, I just must be watching the wrong shows. That was another idea. Okay, so I also want like an inciting evident? I think that's spelled right. Event, and that could be the black hole, and also Ralph's brain being stolen. Now, already I think of a couple of gags that can happen if I keep Ralphie. Ralph has always seen Ralphie as more or less spare parts. So if he needed a kidney, he could just take it off the clone. He's many times swapped bodies with him. So I think his first thing he would want to do is put his brain into the clone's body and then leave the clone with the problem of what to do about the brain. So swap body with Ralphie is one gag I might do. I'm gonna put a question mark on anything I'm still up in the air about. The other thing I was thinking is that if I get rid of Jalea in the opening scene, maybe she gets lost. That might give Ralphie something to do in the story. Now, another character that I have is Roberta. Roberta Smeffenpfeffer is a basically Ralphie and Roberta go out. They're dating. So them going on some sort of side quest to find Jalea might be the way to use them in the book. It would also get Ralphie out of harm's way so that Ralph has to come up with some other solution to solve the problem. So is Ralphie, maybe Ralphie and Roberta on quest to find Jalea. Okay. And I also want Sammy to become Ralph's body. Okay, so those are some things that will start the storyline. Another idea I've been thinking about a little bit is I did do a lot of time travel in the original strip, and I want to do more of that. Who is Stephen Bull? Why, that's me, Kevin. I need to put you on here as a guest at some point. So get your camera ready, and one of these days we're going to do a shared podcast live stream, Kevin. So one of the things I did a lot of was time travel, and I was very meticulous about the way that I plotted time travel. If you do go to the Melonpool website and you get on the newsletter, there's a free 300 some odd page book that just has the time travel stories in it. And I was shocked at the way that a bunch of stories that I wrote in installments over a period of like 8 to 10 years all went together into kind of a cohesive storyline because I had plotted it so meticulously originally. But anyway, one of the things that I always think about is unnecessary time travel. Okay, now time travel. So the cons are that it's usually leads to worse situation. Sorry, you're not really seeing anything here. Situation. It also what else happens with the cons? The other thing that usually happens is it will overlap with other events. Okay. But I do enjoy the storylines. But some unnecessary time travel that I have done in the past, I always use as the okay, we're gonna go UTT. We're call it. Is wanting waffles for breakfast in the morning instead of having cereal, and so a whole time travel story because of that. Or maybe I went back in time to 1966 to get the actors from the original Star Trek's autographs. That was another storyline that they did time travel. There was another one where why else did they go? There was one time when Sammy got put in suspended animation for 200 years and ended up in like the Jetsons' future. And then there's this big time travel loop with that one. So anyway, there's a lot of things like that. The one that I'm thinking about with this this storyline is resetting email password. I might come up with something better, but it's such a hassle. So what the real life event that this stemmed from is that when I just recently rebuilt the old Melonpool website. Oh, Kevin, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Maybe sooner than later because I start knots in a couple when and I won't have weekends for all of February. Anyway, when I was getting melonpool.com up and running, I had registered it 30 years ago, and I couldn't figure out how to get back into the system. And the website that the Network Solutions, which is who I originally bought the domain with, had changed hands like 3 times, and so they had no record of me. They didn't have my current email. The tech guy that I used no longer had access to it anymore. So I had to go through this whole like 4-day process to get access to my old website again. I did get it back. But in the process of that, I thought, if I could just go back in time, would I do it? So that might be the unnecessary time travel that I use. I do have a couple of gags that in talking about this with my friend Eric, came about. One is even if you go back in time, go back to get password, it looks like asterisks. So that might be one storyline I do for Mayberry. Like I said, these side quests, because it's a longer format, will really help plot this book. So one of the ideas I have is that we'll flip them into. So Jalea's out. She would be out in wherever, and then Ralphie and Roberta in search of Jalea, and then Ralph and Sammy in search of Body, and then that would leave Mayberry and Sam, which is Sam the dog. and Sam with unnecessary time travel. So that might be the basic structure for it. Now, the other thing I like to do a lot of times is take the plot of something else and then plug my characters into it with the wacky situations that could happen. So, like I did a storyline with kind of based on Wrath of Khan, and was able to kind of cobble together a storyline that was my own storyline, but it was just hit some of the timing points of that movie and with my own spin on it. So I may take the original Spock's Brain episode and break that down into plot points, as few as there are, and try and structure a story out of that. So the way that one worked was it was because I just watched it, status quo, and then there was a they encounter a ship, and then they everyone knocked out. And then I'm just like trying to figure this. And then Spock's brain stolen, and then they track it down and then restore it in Spock. Okay, so that was the basic storyline of this episode, which again is terrible. But it's often better to take something that's terrible and make it better than take something that's great and try and make it mediocre, I guess. So basically taking that when I did the movie, the Melonpool movie that never got produced, it was based on Star Trek the Motion Picture, another terrible thing. But I was able to take the structure of that and cobble together a storyline, which may end up becoming a graphic novel at some point because there's a lot of good gags in it. But I do believe that if the structure is sound, that the storyline will, it can be anything. You just hit those beats and you should be okay. So that's kind of where I'm at with this story, this thing right now. And I'll try and be on again tomorrow, and maybe I'll do a little bit of drawing as opposed to plotting. Plotting is so hard to do a podcast about, but I want to kind of share every aspect of this project with you guys, and hopefully it's somewhat interesting. And Kevin, yeah, we will try and set something up where we both maybe we could do live drawing or squiggles or something like that. But all right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.